Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Today is, all right, let me get this volume up a little bit. That's better. Today is Monday, September 16th, 2024. And you were in the Java Cafe this morning. We are at a new time. We're at 10 a.m. And so for those of you that are with us, the folks that have been with us for the past 4.5 years, I definitely rather want to acknowledge you and thank you for the past 4.5 years, getting up every morning for the first year, every morning, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Saturdays for a while, we did 10. And then we did Sunday Java for the first year at 1 p.m. on every Sunday. 365 days. We went live every day. The past 3.5, wow, time is really flying. The past 3.5 years, we have really adjusted to a Monday through Thursday at 9 a.m. Start time or brew time. And in March, as you know, we did a little bit of research. We switched our hours from 1 week to 10 a.m. And then we switched our hours to 12 noon. And more people came in May of 22. Folks started to say, hey, I used to, listen from home. Now I'm back at work. I get in at 9 o'clock. Jimmy, I don't watch you. I put Facebook or whatever platform on. I put my headphone in and I listen. And it's easier for me to do that a little bit after 9 o'clock. And so I heard what people have said. It is going to take an adjustment for the Java family that's been with us for the past 4.5 years, but we're also going to end up welcoming new people into the Java Cafe and also some of our old friends back that are in the office at 9 a.m. And so that's my whole spiel, why I'm popping up on Instagram and also Twitter today at 9 a.m. And so I'm glad to see all of you here this morning. And we're getting ready to bring in our guest. This is a young lady that is working. And if you move in the wellness space here in the Boston area, you are probably familiar with Naisha Deed and Pure Spark. And so she does something very similar to her in the state of Georgia. And so we're going to speak with her just coming in now. I am proud and honored to introduce to some. And Anastasia, I'm going to get the first name. I'm not even going to, because I believe in proper pronunciation of last names and the culture and everything. And so you tell us your last name.
Chrysostom.
Say it again.
Chrysostom.
Chrysostom. I definitely had kind of a different phonetic.
I get chrysanthemum a lot. It's not a problem. No worries. Yeah.
I wasn't going to go that far, but welcome to the Java Cafe. I'm so glad. My first guest in our new 10 a.m. hour. And so please introduce yourself, say good morning to the folks. And you are with us today from what part of Georgia?
I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. That's where I've been here for about 12 years now. Okay.
Now, how close are you to Midtown?
Like 10 minutes, maybe.
That is my area. The what is it? Taco. Oh God, there's the taco bar right there in Peachtree.
Oh, yes. I can't remember the name of it now that you've asked me, but yes, I do know what you're talking about.
The spot, then they have the brewery with the pineapple brew. Yes. So a few spots down there. And so welcome to the Java Cafe all the way from Atlanta. Please greet the folks this morning. And based on what we're going to talk about today, right now, how would you describe the state of therapists in one word?
Ooh, okay. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Anastasia Chrysostom. I am a graduate student at Mercer University down here in Atlanta, Georgia, studying in the clinical mental health counseling program. I also own my own business where I help therapists in private practice build sustainable practices so that they can give back to the community in meaningful ways while also still taking care of themselves. State of therapists right now, I think like a lot of us, there's a lot of burnout going on. And that's something that I'm going to be able to hope and working to address with a lot of therapists in the community.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about your journey, Anastasia. You're someone that wants to support therapists, and you can't move in that space without understanding the life, the rigor, the stress, the burden it can lead to burnout without moving in that space. And so you're in a clinical space now. Tell us a little bit about your journey and why you chose, or why this space chose you, and you're moving in this space of supporting clinicians.
Yeah, so I think mine goes back pretty early. My mom is a therapist. And so obviously I got exposed to a lot of conversations about mental health, about therapy from a very early age. And it really influenced the way that my brothers and I really viewed and interacted with the world. The specialty that I am looking at going into is trauma. It's really what I have a passion for, crisis and trauma. And I think that's the same kind of similar overlaps my mom focuses in. And so I started volunteering at a pretty young age with the Charleston Dorchester mental health clinic back home in Charleston, and was able to get exposed to that pretty early, and kind of really, it really just clicked, and realized that this is what I was meant to be doing. I think that was at 18. And so I've really been on a pretty designated journey since then. And through that, I found myself in working with a lot of therapists. When I was an undergrad, I was working at a very large private practice, and that's when I started getting exposed to not just the therapists who were working in that private practice, but we were networking with other therapists around the area. And what I had found was a ton of really talented, skilled, and just very invested therapists were starting private practice, getting excited, which is great because it's an environment that allows you to be creative with your clients, to collaborate, to have kind of that freedom in a different way than agencies might allow. But what was happening was we would meet someone, get excited, and then like a year or two later, they would have closed up their private practice. And I found that this was particularly happening to a lot of women of color, especially in Georgia. And so I realized around that time is when I had started realizing, oh, I have a lot of skills when it comes to the business side. I grew up in a family business, and so apparently those had kind of carried over. My understanding of how that overlapped with a lot of the clinical demands as well, kind of really just realized that I had a lot of information that I could help. And so that's kind of what started me on this journey of not just becoming a therapist myself, but also wanting to help as many therapists actually be able to sustain private practice, so that those communities weren't losing such a wonderful source that really could be there to aid them.
It's so interesting because I often state here on the platform that one of the largest growing populations of entrepreneurs are Black women and women of color. And so to hear you state that a lot of those that you had observed that were going through that period of burnout just after 1 or 2 years is very interesting. And so it's so I have to, if you don't mind, I was always taught you never ask a woman their age, but I feel comfortable asking your age because you present to have this sort of destiny at an early age, and yes. So you can give a general ballpark.
It's okay. I'm 32.
So at 30, that's still, especially someone that's 20 years, you're 21, Jesus, 21 years, you're senior. It is amazing to see that you are so focused doing this. And so you understand the business acumen of this as well at 32. And so let's jump in a little bit. You're there in Georgia. Mm-hmm. You move specifically and have a specialty and appreciation for trauma.
Yes.
There's a lot that goes on there: racism, violence, xenophobia, misogyny, toxic masculinity. I'm trying to stay away from the political realm, but Georgia is on the map. And so, and there's a lot of trauma there. Mm-hmm. And you're finding, and you said a majority was a lot of women of color. What had seemed to be one of the number one reasons? Was it burnout from the actual work, or was it business of therapy?
Combination of both. What we were seeing is that, Georgia, and a lot of things are really specific kind of to the Atlanta area. And so you had a lot of therapists trying to, at least this is just what I was seeing, was a lot of these therapists that we were meeting at the time were really trying hard to bring out services kind of to the larger area beyond just the greater Atlanta area. But where there's not as many resources, the population is generally going to be kind of lower income and more of a mix, but there's not as much demand. And this, keep in mind, this was probably like 7 years ago when this first started. And so I feel like at the time, mental health wasn't being talked about as often as it is now. And so you didn't have as many people seeking, but I feel like it was a lack of resources. A lot of it was the demand is different. And I think just in general, which we kind of all know, I think at this point, where Black women just have to fight harder to be taken seriously in pretty much any career. And so they probably weren't giving, I think what was happening is they weren't being given as many chances as well. And there weren't a lot of platforms around that I think were really elevating their voices at the time, or at least that weren't as known. So for example, one of the main platforms that therapists have profiles on is like Psychology Today, but it is inundated, it's hard, but now there's, and I think it was around at the time, but it wasn't used as much. There's like Therapy for Black Girls, which is a phenomenal platform for people to find therapists, but I think that's being used more and there's just more resources out there now, but it's still a struggle. But I think at the time, there was a lot of overlap with just not having the resources when it comes to like just learning how to run the business side of things, because graduate programs do not teach that by any means. And so there's a lot of figuring it out on your own. And if you're especially in a far away area and you're not going to have another therapist to talk to, you're not going to have that support of just in between session conversations of like, hey, how do I do this? I'm really struggling, to figure out how to get more clients or just balance my admin, and I'm getting burned out. And there's a lot of that goes into running a private practice that people don't see, and it's exhausting. And you have therapists who are at the office late, just finishing progress notes, having to do billing, having to figure out like all of those things.
Make sure you have the authorizations. I used to do auths.
Right. Yes.
And
all
then
of those things
on your initial 6 visit. Sorry, just
right.
Moment there.
Exactly. No. And that's the one that's especially if you're taking insurance. And so it's a whole other story if you're taking insurance as well. And so just majority of therapists aren't prepared for that. And they get burnt out. We are not taught that there are other ways to do things other than just this one definition. And so when you're trying to fit yourself into this one definition, and to be clear, this one definition has been determined by how Western healthcare is supposed to be set. And if you're trying to fit yourself into that box and that's not what your clients fit in, and that's not who you fit in, and in those cases, that's not going to work for you. And it's not a reflection on you as a provider. It's a reflection on the system that's broken.
Now, Anastasia, in the beginning, I told you we got these wonderful questions that Anissa put together, and then we respond off your answer. And so, okay, let me pull a question together that takes into consideration what you just said in reference to why a lot of the portion of women of color, a large portion, are shutting down after a year or two. It seemed like it is the business because you can't keep the clientele. Transportation. We know that Georgia has a lot of rural areas, and if you're not right in Midtown and it's kind of hard, to get to your therapist. There's telehealth and things like that. And so how have you taken your experience at Mercer in education, and what is your major? Because I presume you have a business major as well as the clinical as well, right?
I don't. I've not gone to school for business. I grew up in a family business, and so I was taught a lot of those things. And then when I was running a practice for about 17 therapists when I was also working in undergrad,
okay,
and so they did a lot of on-site training for me, and that's where I got a lot of those skills. Yes, but my
function is like a practice manager and that piece of it. So the income coming in, the authorizations, and things like that. CEOs, HIPAA compliance. So that business end, and what I just named is sort of what we call the back office of a business. And
it's
so
anything that's not the therapy.
Anything that's not the therapy. And so how have you taken that experience and your clinical training and now have formed, and I want to say it correctly, Halosydne?
Halosydne. It's another Greek word. It's okay.
Wait, Anastasia, I wasn't Now that one, I was more willing to try because it's not a name. It's a name of an entity, but it's not a person.
Yes.
So Halosydne, and you said what?
Halosydne. It's another Greek word. It means sea nourished.
Sea nourished.
Yes.
Okay, so set the scene.
Right.
Mercer, starting your organization and business, and this experience that you've had, working with 17 therapists, seeing a lot of women of color close their practice and whatnot. How is that informed, and how have you come into Halosydne?
Close. Halosydne. Yes, no worries.
I'm going to get this thing right. How's it all come together for you?
So, I think a lot of it has been just the experiences that I was not prepared to have gotten, and I'm very grateful to have gotten. A lot of what I'm really grateful for, like I was really honing in on Mercer. It's a program I've heard about by a lot of other therapists. And one of the things that I have appreciated about Mercer is the professors. And so, you have your curriculum that each state sets to become a therapist. But what I appreciate is that the professors there make a point to integrate discussions about trauma, about racial and cultural, differences, as well as the, just oppression systems of oppression, and how all of that overlaps when we're talking about almost every subject, every class that I've had. And they have made a point to bring those issues to be part of the discussions, to be part of how we learn and lenses that we look through. Like, for example, my assessments class, I think it was last semester that I had, assessments is a pretty cut and dry curriculum wise kind of class, but the professor made a point to talk about, okay, how can assessments traditionally not serve people of color? How can assessments traditionally not, really scan for, people who are neurodivergent, and how neurodivergent overlaps with people of color in different cultures and coming from different nationalities and all of these different things. And so she made a point to make sure for us to learn through that lens. And so even, yes, we'll be in jobs where we have to do an assessment. We are being prepared to make sure that we are doing our job accordingly, but we are doing it through this understanding and the lens of asking the right questions and taking into consideration. And so, for example, when I am, helping therapists through my job, talk to them about the kind of paperwork they need, talk to them about the kind of things they need to have uploaded to their EHR and how to conduct these things, particularly, new therapists who are doing this on their own for the first time and not having somebody tell them what to do. These are things I talk to them about. I talk to them about what their values are, how they want this to be reflected in their practice. And so we kind of collaborate together with this lens of things I've learned from school to be able to come up with things that are going to reflect the needs of their clients best and reflect their values in doing so. And I think how a lot of it has kind of come together is a lot of the things, the therapists I work with trauma to some degree. And so there's really, one of the things I talk to them about is, like, for example, you're a therapist brand, a therapist, who they are is not just, whatever they're posting on social media. It's also how their office, beyond themselves, how their office manager interacts with their clients, and that their staff needs to be trauma informed as well about these things too. So those are things that I'm really working with therapists on to kind of help them give the tools, and that I've realized just through my experience and through, my schooling really needs to have those details need to be paid attention to.
A couple of things, Anastasia, and I'm hearing the support for True through, and I'll be honest with you. When I referenced you to Pure Spark, that support I interpreted is, and you do, not saying you don't do this, but the heights and the coming together, but it's really on. I view what you're saying as it's a sustainability lens of equity that not only supports the provider, but supporting the provider also ultimately supports the community, because they're staying in place. They build a relationship, or rather than jumping from therapist to therapist. And then, because we've said on this platform often, therapy is sometimes like dating. And after, you've had a few bad dates, you don't want to,
right.
No particular reference to anyone. I want to ask one particular thing, because you used the word neurodivergent. A few weeks ago, that became a very trending word based on vice presidential candidate's son.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, what is his name?
Tim Waltz.
Tim Waltz is the candidate. What is his son? Gus? Is it Gus?
Oh, I think so. I can't quite remember.
Gus became a social media like phenomenon. Mm-hmm. But in that, there was new attention brought to neurodivergency, if there's such a word. Can you, in layman's terms for us while we're here, what it is to be neurodivergent?
Right. So to be clear, neurodivergence is not a diagnosis, entirely. It is it's kind of a umbrella term where a lot of people who are like ADHD and autistic will normally fall into. And it's one of those things where we have thankfully started talking about it more in the past 10 years, especially. I think it's one of the things where actually social media has helped with a lot of things to a certain degree when it comes to a lot of ADHD and autistic people kind of finding communities online and helping kind of understand certain things that are not in the DSM that we all kind of connect over and help not feel so alone in. And so I, to be clear, am not, don't have like official training in autism. I've done some volunteer stuff with autism, but I would not consider myself to be an expert to speak on the matter. Yeah. I am ADHD. And so that is an experience that has definitely influenced pretty much every aspect of my life because it is something that is just our brains work differently. So that's something I can speak a little bit more on, particularly when we're talking about things like balancing a business as well as going to grad school. Those are just different things that I learned I have to do differently. And I cannot follow the normal path that most neurotypical people who are not ADHD or autistic kind of give. Because it's just
hold on. I heard a new term.
Oh yeah. So neurotypical, again, I think it's more of a community term, to be clear. This is not something
because it almost is, it has an air of taking back when there is this stigma around diagnosis and whatnot. And so it's almost like those that have unique abilities. I just want to also name that we've talked about in this space often, non-visible disabilities. And so you just use the term neurotypical. It's almost just a teeny bit of shade, just a teeny bit.
I think there is definitely a space where a lot of I've talked with other people who have ADHD online, and it's communities that we've had, and it's one where we have kind of been told, even if it wasn't intentional, that something was wrong with the way how we learned things, or something was wrong because we weren't doing it the right way. And so it's something that a lot of us have had to kind of work through and battle with, this idea that something's wrong with us when you are trying to fit into, again, a box that wasn't built for you. And so a big part of it was just, I had to, especially in grad school, I had to learn, I think it was after like my second semester, I was drowning because I kept trying to I was really passionate about my program. I wanted to do good, but I kept trying to make myself do the things in a way that my brain just wouldn't fit into. And so, for example, I learned that I had to have boundaries around things like, my energy and seeing friends and stuff. As nice as that would be, for me, it would then drain my energy and I wouldn't have the focus that I would need to for my schoolwork. Or, for example, things like there's a tool that a lot of ADHD people use, which is urgency. Our brains function on urgency. And so we can try to plan ahead for something as much as possible. But if I have a paper due in 4 months, and I remember trying this. I remember sitting down 4 months ahead of time. I gave myself 2 hours a day to work on this thing. And I would sit there and stare at my computer and get mad at myself because my brain would just not do the thing. And then you're getting shame. And then you're smiling because you're like, why can't I do the thing like everybody else can? And so what I found was like, okay, I kind of have an idea around how much time I need to give myself to still do a good job at this, but still feel just enough of an urgency for my brain to actually do it. And so rather than trying to sit down and 4 months ahead of time before a paper's due and give myself 2 hours a day where I'm just going to fight my brain and sit at the computer and not do anything, it's more of like, okay, 2 months before the paper is due. And then I just set aside a whole bunch of time, and I don't necessarily socialize for those 2 months because I have enough urgency to sit down and work on the paper accordingly. It is one of those things where a lot of my ADHD friends will talk and we'll joke and we're like, we're not saying it's the healthiest way, but we're saying it works, because we have to have that sense of urgency.
But it has to be healthy for you.
It does. I think it's one of those things where the definition of health of like, God, you're so stressed. I'm like, look, my brain needs the stress to kind of function, that urgency. What it took out for me was the shame. And I think when you're taking shame out of any equation, then you're doing something right. Ultimately.
Hold on. We need to go back and get that for a full screen. You know how people do the thumbnails intentionally, but no, this needs to be something. So can you talk a little bit again about removing the shame around being healthy for you?
Yeah. I think like when you are sitting down and trying to figure out, okay, what works for me? And like we said earlier, is trying to fit myself into a box that was not made for me actually helping, or is it just perpetuating this sense of shame because I can't do that thing the way they say it needs to be done? And so for me, what worked was sitting down and figuring out ways, okay, what works for me, and removing the shame of this idea of the shoulds. I think when we remove the barriers of shoulds, then we are around ourselves, then we are going in and extracting this shame that is put on us through the idea of how we should be doing something or how other people want us to be doing something, and really allowing ourselves to show up authentically for ourselves in that case.
Anastasia, what you just said there is so applicable. Okay. So one, I don't do this too often when I'm doing an interview. I got Post-it notes and paper. So I got 2 more notes that I have to get to, and now I have to go and write 2 more. Okay. Let's go with what you let's go in sort of chronological order. Mm-hmm. You made reference to assessment. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I remember either in the criminal justice system, mm-hmm, in the medical, on the behavioral health side, once you get into that system, mm-hmm, have an assessment, get a DSM-4 diagnosis, that follows you. And so I have to appreciate, excuse me, the intentionality of informing assessment, because DSM-4, I think is it 5 now?
It's 5 now.
And God knows I hate to see 6 post-COVID. And I heard there's already some COVID-induced ancillary sort of anyway. That assessment piece is paramount, because if one person can go in and without the awareness of cultural competence, and it became such a big buzzword in DEI and things like that, that can make a huge difference of someone being sectioned, mm-hmm, for suicidal ideation versus that person just using, sometimes I just feel like taking myself out of here. It's just been and you got to be able to understand that particular day it wasn't suicidal ideation. Dude just had a bad day. Now, do you work with them so it doesn't get to that point? So thank you for the assessment piece and considering culture. The other piece is, you mentioned DSM. I was in the field when it was DSM-4. Mm-hmm. I used to work with Ted Stern and Greg Friccione, who are like textbook APA experts type of folks. And so minimally familiar. And those things do follow you. So thank you for that assessment piece again. The other thing I want to ask you real quick is a few years ago, a friend of mine, Shauna Ruggles, who is a clinician, mm-hmm, talked about and sent me an article about the importance and consideration and balance of moving away from trauma-informed care. Mm-hmm. On the go.
Oh, no. What was the question, I guess?
It wasn't a question. I was getting ready to pose it. Mm-hmm. It's where is the balance of understanding trauma-informed care, and then not being, hear me out for a second. A lot of what you talked about in Western medicine and culture, we've been conditioned. A little bit about my second set of notes of the days and you shoulds. We'll get deeper into that in a second. Trauma-informed care, what the article basically said and what Shauna had articulated to me was, it doesn't get the provider society and society to see themselves beyond trauma. If the trauma-informed care is so based in the trauma, how move into guiding people beyond trauma?
I see.
You gotta address it, but you know what I'm saying? Right. Just curious. I know I'm just sort of presenting it now. I didn't send you the article. What are sort of your thoughts there? Because I believe you can speak to it.
So, having not read the article and only understanding kind of what my understanding of trauma-informed care is, for me, when I hear trauma-informed care and how it has been presented to me, it pretty much means going into a situation of care, whether somebody's coming in for trauma or not, and recognizing that trauma can be integrated with many things. So, for example, undiagnosed and really untreated trauma can look like a lot of different things, even without that diagnosis. And so you might have somebody coming in for like depression, high anxiety, but really it could be the effects of term trauma. And so if you're giving somebody a pill for depression, but you're not addressing the actual trauma, then that's kind of what trauma-informed care is looking through the lens of recognizing that, you know, there is trauma through racism, there is trauma through sexism, there is trauma through, these are everyday experiences for many people, in addition to, you know, abusive relationships or, you know, what everybody thinks of when they think of PTSD, which is, you know, combat or something like that. And so, yes, you can have like, you know, a single event, but you also have these kind of ways, more insidious ways that trauma can, you know, be showing up for people in everyday life. And for many people, they're born into it because of the color of their skin in this country. And so it's more of simply recognizing that can be present before slapping on a diagnosis for what it looks like at first. And then recognizing that some things are going to be more appropriate when it comes to treatment. And again, trauma-informed care for me means, you know, being culturally humble to the understanding that there are going to be things that you have to, you know, what is going to work for trauma care for one person who's white is not necessarily going to be the thing that works for the next person as well.
Miss Anastasia. Yes. Thank you for even a deeper understanding of trauma-informed care. And from a clinical point of view, and with the assessment and lens in which you speak, anybody that's involved with you, I think is pretty good. Generally speaking, I think that having that sort of balance and based on what you just explained, the goal is to get the people to function because if trauma is addressed, it's been informed by the treatment plan and
right.
All right, Miss Anastasia, that was pretty good there. I just thought about it as you were talking. Two other things from my notes. And again, this can be applied to anything. The theys and the shoulds.
Yeah.
and your whole demeanor just changed there. First of all, there was this social media post some months ago. Well, it comes up every once in a while. Is who was the they? They said, they did. They said, you know, the days and then the should. I have moved away myself in the context of you talking about conditioning and traditional models. I've tried to move away in general of should, because oftentimes when we say should, it implies that if we don't do what we're saying, the other choice is wrong or there's something wrong with it. And so just again, go a little bit deeper. What I heard from you was giving yourself permission. We talked about being healthy. You said that your friends say it may not be the healthiest way, but it works. Can you just give us a couple of seconds of the permission to not go by the days and don't pay attention to the shoulds, but be healthy?
Yeah, I think so. Brene Brown talks about this a lot. This is kind of where a lot of this concept was introduced to me, like 10 years ago when I started, you know, reading and understanding a lot because she's a shame researcher. And so she talks a lot about the way that shame shows up in our lives, particularly by many of our loved ones on a regular basis, generally very well-meaning.
That's a whole session in itself as the holidays come in.
Well, and so you can have a very supportive and loving community, you know, family, whatever it is. But a lot of the ways that I think we have learned to talk and show support with one another can sometimes be, okay, well, just go ahead and you should do this. Because a lot of times it's like someone who's older trying to help the younger person avoid a pain that they went through. But a big part of it is sometimes they have to learn it their own way. And so I think many of the times it's well-meaning, not all the time, but whether it's an intention is very rarely part of the equation, because whether it's your intention to help or not, if the way you're presenting or trying to show up for somebody is the way that you're defining as being helpful versus how they define as being helpful, it's ultimately going to come off as, I don't have room to show up for myself. I have to show up the way you want me to. And so, we see this a lot of times with partners. We see this a lot of times with, family members when they're blending. And we see this with friend groups as well. Really any close relationship that you have, there is a way to show up for people, but sometimes it's about questioning, okay, am I trying to show up for this person in the way that they have asked for? Have I listened? Have I asked? Have I been curious? Or am I showing up in the way that I think is best? And what am I imposing on them because I'm determining what is best for them? And so then on the flip side, when you're learning about what's best for yourself, part of that is just learning how to speak up and advocate for yourself. And that can be something as simple. It doesn't need to be some blowout. It can be simply like, hey, I appreciate you trying to help, but I would really be more open to hearing you if you presented it this way. And it just has to be sometimes that gentle communication with one another and giving each other the benefit of the doubt.
You got me in so many areas that we could go in this tree and vine.
Right.
We've talked about, and you're giving a different perspective of something we talked about previously. We often say when there's a death in the family, when someone's had a tragic, accident or surgery, whatever you need, right, I'm there. And on that side, we were holding space for the person not to over obligate themselves to be there for someone.
Right.
On the other side, what I just heard from you was offer, but not only do I need you, not only does the person offering need to be real about what they can offer to set their own boundaries, the person that's receiving the help might need to set some boundaries as well. How you speak to me, how you impose your help on me, and another thing we've said is that sometimes people just need you to listen, and we don't always have to offer. Well, I think, and what she said, what Michael, we would talk. September is Suicide Awareness Month, talking about people just listening. And I had the Samaritans on, and what Michael said was, when they finish, you just say, thank you for sharing. And I said, yeah, no, that's so insensitive. But going back to Western conditioning,
right? A big part of it is just being uncomfortable with them. Whether it's a client, whether it's a family member, whatever. Honestly, the biggest part of showing up for somebody sometimes is just being in that anger, being in that fear, being in that pain, being in that discomfort simply with them. And that's generally meaning kind of just sometimes quiet, sometimes they're crying, but you're sitting in it with them and you're not trying to cover it with, let me fix this.
Is that pride? To try to fix it? Yes. Is it a little bit? And a little bit of pride is, okay. I just had that thought. Pride
might, for some people might play a small part of it. I think honestly, a lot of it's just our discomfort as a society with emotion, our discomfort with and trying to avoid it. And it's easy to avoid the uncomfortable feeling that's in the room right there if you can try to fix it to make the pain go away. But the goal is not to make the pain go away. The goal is to be witness to it.
That, you've said a lot, but that right there is one of those nuggets. The goal is not to make the pain to go away. The goal is to be witness to it. Because sometimes I'm just getting this as we're talking. A lot of times people feel no other choice but to die by suicide is oftentimes it's the loneliness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's isolation.
Just be witness to it. And sometimes that witness is just your presence.
Yes, exactly. And one of the things when we're talking about, especially some of the things we've also mentioned in this show, when we're talking about being a culturally, again, the word competent, I think really more it's humble, provider. And again, I am not licensed. I'm not saying I'm an expert on this by any means, but I think from one of the things I have taken away from my experiences and many of the discussions I've appreciated being able to have is when you're talking about racial conversations, particularly as those are alive and well, particularly nowadays, in our culture, it's, if we're going to have communities that are supporting one another, that also means being witness to those feelings and those angers. Like, I am a white therapist, and that means that I need to be ready and willing to simply hold the space for pain and anger, whether it is a Black client or a Black friend or somebody that's in my life when we have things happening in our societies that we have now, as well as whether it's, men and women holding that anger for what's happening and control and just those feelings of repression. But I think ultimately, if we as a society, not just therapists, would be more willing to just bear witness to each other's feelings and not take it personally, that is where a lot of that community healing and reconnecting could really take place. And that those are kind of the things that whether I'm working with therapists, that I kind of try to talk to them about. It's like, if we can bring this mindset that is more mental health focused back into our communities, I feel like we could start bringing some sort of community connection and healing back in as well. But part of that is just making space and for giving people permission to know that they don't have to fix it. They don't have to defend themselves. It's just about showing up for those feelings and seeing each other as human.
Anastasia, there's so much here, and I can't believe it's 10:46 already. There's so much here that we brought up today that, maybe we deviated a little bit from some of and I think we accomplished the original intent. We've named this. I won't go into my dissertation about social construction, but we just help recreate society for therapists, for people that are considering going into therapy. I will say for, a lot of the behavioral health, the public health, the mental health space is occupied by a lot of white women. Mm-hmm. And I thank you for, and I don't think the word understanding, no, cultural humility, humbleness. I thank you for your cultural humbleness, because it doesn't come off as insincere. It comes off as well-informed, experiential, sort of with the goal of sustainability of healthy providers to help sustain and recreate a healthy society. That's exactly. Okay. I may have not got the last name right. I may have not got, hold on, let me do it. Say it again.
Halosydne. The H is basically silent. There's just like a very smidge of it in the beginning.
Halosydne. Okay, I got it now. Yeah. What I do want to do, folks, is tell you that Halosydne, the hyperlink, is in the comments right now as we speak. And if you want to check out what Anastasia is doing there in Atlanta, I'm sure some of your reach, and if folks want to reach out, you're international. We have the internet now. But if you just want to keep up with what she's doing as well, and also you're able to go follow her on social media. And her as it's called on Instagram. Her personal, hold on, let me get this together here.
I have 2 business accounts.
I'm gonna do the first one, and then we got the other one. I got you covered. I got you. Trust me. Creative Trauma Care is the first one, and that is on Instagram. And then there is another one where it's Halosydne Wellness. And I mean, even in that, when I pose the question about trauma-informed care versus seeing ourselves beyond our trauma, even in the fact that you have 2 names, is almost sort of the implication that there's a balance of, we're going to do trauma-informed care here, but Halosydne is also, the wellness space and getting folks into being more healthier. And so, Anastasia, today was very informative. I got a lot of comments. Unfortunately, they don't show up on Instagram here. But one of the comments was assessments can become like a scarlet letter of one's mental health. All care should be trauma informed, particularly when the current diagnosis of trauma begins after the age of 7 in most people of color who are. Another comment, shame, when you were talking about shame plays a huge role in mental health, especially when it comes to asking for help or even recognizing unique differences rather in individuals. And so there was definitely some great engagement over on Instagram as well. I was looking Twitter. They don't all 74 of y'all that's watching over on Twitter right now that didn't say anything. Please make sure you engage in the conversation. But I just wanted to make sure that folks knew again where they could follow you in both places. The first one is Creative Trauma Care, and also at Halosydne Wellness. And also right there in the comments, and you can hyperlink directly to her website, is Anastasia's website, which is halosydnewellness.com. And so, Anastasia, folks know that I'm a little bit tired. And what that means is that there's been some good, healthy, authentic exchange.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate your spirit and the way in which you're approaching sustainability of sort of equitable practices. But not only this is the if folks didn't hear the obvious support on a macro level of the providers, which eventually they're supported, so are all their clients.
Yes, exactly. I appreciate you providing this platform for me to be able to kind of talk more about it. And I'm hoping that this will hopefully inspire others to just go out and seek connection within their communities, and for fellow therapists to kind of support one another and recognize the differences in the resources that we have, and try to create a more equitable kind of union for all of us.
Have you submitted academic posters, PubMed publishments, and are you going to attempt to?
Not yet. I do. Considering going for my PhD at Mercer. There are certain things that I really would like to study. And there are a lot of creative ways that when it comes to addressing trauma and more culturally, again, competent kind of ways that I would like there to be more research in, especially, combining more playful and creative methods with certain ways of trauma that I have some ideas for.
The playfulness is not lost on me. Some years ago, there was an agency that literally was working to get adults to play.
Yes, there's a lot of them. There's Geek Therapeutics. There's Games to Grow, which are great platforms that talk about literally healing and doing therapy through playing games. There's a ton of them out there, and those are some of the things I get really excited to talk about when you're combining a lot of the playfulness, because it helps, I think it reaches a part of you that it doesn't necessarily have to be cognitive in the present, and can kind of go back to a younger place where healing might be a little bit more accessible.
And that, for a lot of us, to the comment that the brother made on Instagram, going back and playing in that healing place as an adult, going back to your childhood, could be very, very powerful.
Yes.
All right. We could be another 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Anastasia, please keep in touch. I will do my best to remember to put you in touch with Naisha D.
I would love that.
A pure spark, because I believe if nothing but a conversation and sharing what you're doing, and she brings some stuff up here, or even offer sort of maybe an online workshop for her providers so they can understand and also be aware and know that there are people going into the system that are trying to change some of these systems and structures to which you referred. I
think one thing I would like to end on recognizing too is that as a white woman in this system, it is not an elective to be part of it. It is a responsibility that we need to play more of a role, especially recognizing that we're the majority in therapy right now, to again bringing in that word of equity. That is a responsibility for any white provider who is a part of any sort of system, to make this so that we are no longer the majority or the ones who are solely in power. That is the only way we're going to create any sort of equity in our communities.
Anastasia, I'll just end with this. My mama said, Anastasia, I learned a lot. Thank you so much. And so Mama Java is, I really appreciate you and your sincerity and just, we need more with your spirit and motive and foundation. And so going in, hopefully you replicate and you change the system, because you definitely are. Someone said that this was so powerful. You're definitely a change agent, a powerful change agent. And so thank you for spending the time with us on this Monday morning.
Yes.
Chance, go stop by to Taco Mix. Taco Mix.
Oh, yes. That's right. It came back around. We got it.
So stop by Taco Mix for me and have one of the pineapple ales. And thank you so much. And I will definitely put you in touch with Naisha.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I've just enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you. This was good. Thank you very much, Anastasia.
Thanks.
Listen, folks, I hope you're walking away with something today, because she was just, I really appreciate a lot of the unique and non-traditional conversations that we've been curating lately. And so it is definitely appreciated. Listen, it is 10:56. I think UCB, y'all are going to wind up getting 90 minutes because I have a few announcements. Again, we are here with you now at 10 a.m. Monday through Thursday here in the Java Cafe. So make sure you plan to join us every Monday through Thursday at 10 a.m. As well as don't forget that this Thursday night, cuffing season kicks off at the Mix. We are having our launch event in collaboration with the Action for Boston Community Development, which is Anastasia, did you forget something?
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. All of a sudden the screen went out and I didn't know if I did that or you.
We ended our segment. No, you're good. I thought you came back. You good?
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And so folks, don't forget that this Thursday evening, now you need to go and register. Let me put the link right here. Those of you that are watching on Twitter and cuffing season, I guess I need to put out a definition at some point. What cuffing basically is that time of year when it's getting a little chilly and, you want to create some heat. But you don't want it to get too hot and you don't want to get burned, because numbers around some of the activities that come with cuffing season, for some, the numbers are rising around HIV, STIs, and unwanted pregnancy. And so we want to ensure that you know that there are resources available to you, such as 2 kiosks that are going to be available in the Codman Square area and also over in the Fenway Community Health Center area. We want to let you know that you can go to the ABCD Health Services website, which we'll post and get some more information. Also on Thursday, we have Jeff Two Times, who will be spinning the music. We have complimentary hors d'oeuvres that include some very, very nice options from the Mix, our host, and we'll hear from ABCD and some of the providers also from the ABCD Health Services Network will be there. We're giving out condoms and some other essentials that you need to ensure that you cuff safely. So make sure you plan to come and be with us on Thursday evening. This is a 21 plus event. And so, you need to be there. I just saw somebody say, y'all are not going to turn this into an after dark. Nisi said, that's what my comforter is for. Cuff it. Cuff the comforter, Jesus. So however, that's one of, and Pam, thank you for updating your calendar for 10 a.m. from now on. And shout out to Pam, who had her soft opening yesterday of In the Cut Barbershop, which is right down the street from me in Nubian Square. And so we'll let you know when her official opening is so you can schedule and go get a cut at In the Cut with Pam Leans. All right, Pam is starting. Hold on. So still no arm cuffs for blood pressure. I can, Pam, we can see if we can. I didn't think about blood pressure checks. for men, blood pressure is important to cuffing season. And we'll just leave that there. And so if you're interested in coming out on Thursday, make sure you play it. Oh, Pam said that they are already open at In the Cut. Let me stay focused because we don't want to be cuffing in the cut. Well, some people be cuffing in the cut. And I'm just going to leave that right there. Please send a text, Miss Soraya, to the young woman. Hopefully you guys have been in touch. I'll send her a text and nudge her as well. All right. Let's get off of cuffing season. And Miss Teresa said, ain't nobody cuffing around. Dr. Gail Crump-Swaby is in the building. An honor to have you here. An honor to have you here, especially with that conversation. And so that's it for me. No, folks are not getting a haircut, Ma. Cuffing season at the Mix Thursday. In the Cut is a barbershop in Nubian Square. Pam, put your hours down there, or put the website link or Facebook page or whatever you use for folks to book appointments there at In the Cut. Pam, put that link in there. We're going to get ready to go. Asia, you have a blessed week as well. I believe we're getting up this week. Again, this Thursday night. October 17th is the next Black Java, No Sugar, No Cream. We're going to speak with a dancer that dances with Usher and also Chris Brown. We're also going to speak to a local rap artist here from the city of Boston. And I'm looking to bring one of the Black restaurateurs in to chat with us. They have not been on in the Java Cafe, and I tell them all the time, they say I don't, but I owe them a lot more love. And so October 17th is the next Black Java, every third Thursday. Don't forget, I believe it's December 20th. The third Thursday in December, we're going to do our holiday Java show. It's a Java celebration. And there is the link to Pam's barbershop, In the Cut, Boston. So if you need to schedule a haircut to get ready to look good, to get your cuff on Thursday, go see Pam. All right. And her barbers. I don't think she does the cut. Pam, do you cut? I don't think she does the cuts herself. All right. The live DJ is at the event at the Mix. Ma? No. Do you Ma's not allowed at the cuffing season event. Mm-mm. No, mother. But the DJ is there on Thursday. For others, Sister Debbie, it is good to see you in the room. I think I saw Sharon Cornelius in the building as well. All right, that's it for me. Yes, the cuffing season event is 21 plus, but the Mother's Board, no. I can't. Oh, Jesus, no. Now, with that being said, some of our seniors have been treated multiple times for STIs. So, certainly not the Mother's Board. So, y'all better not cheese it. Let me get off of here. Gregory, good to see you in the room, brother. Make sure you go to my page and click that link for cuffing season on Thursday at the Mix. All right, I'm getting ready to go, everybody. Cuffing season, Thursday at the Mix at 6 p.m. Make sure you register. Let me just check tickets. We were at about 35-40% when I looked the other day. Hold on. Let me just double check. Uh-oh. We're just about at 50% of the tickets being gone. So y'all better go get your tickets. It's free, but you have to register. And this is the link where you need to register. Go ahead and get your tickets for cuffing season on Thursday. All right. That's it for me, everyone. I am out of here. Okay, you too. Let me get off of here. And we'll see you guys tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Shout out to everybody that's listening over on Twitter and Instagram. Java family, say welcome. Maximo, good to see you in the room from Boston Center for Independent Living. Good to see you in the room. Thank you to everyone that's listening on Instagram and also Twitter and Facebook and on the website as well. We will be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Our guest for tomorrow, hold on. Let me tell y'all right now. On Wednesday morning, Mayor Michelle Wu will be with us at 9 a.m. All right, let me get the focus in where I went. Tomorrow morning, I keep saying 9 a.m. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Thank you, Ma. 10 a.m. Yes, mother, Nisi, Ma, 10 a.m., 10 a.m. Listen, 4.5 years. Sorry. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., we get to speak with Lacey Tomlinson, who was with us a couple of months ago, speaking about her disability, I call unique ability, and she talked about parenting with it. And so a lot of you are getting your young people back into school, and that can be very stressful. So Lacey's going to speak with us tomorrow at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. 10 and Nisi 10. My fault. I'm so used to saying I'm still Miss Teresa says stop confusing her. She's still on meds. 10 a.m. y'all. 10 a.m. tomorrow. 10 a.m. All right. Thursday night. Go get your ticket for cuffing season. And I think that is it for me. Thank you for listening. And again, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Somebody say 10 a.m., 10 a.m., 10 a.m. See you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. And also let's plan to see you on Thursday night for cuffing season. Y'all have a great day, everybody.